I need you to keep two things in mind when you watch this video. First thing is that I'm not against the idea of office work. I'm not against the idea of commuting back and forth from your office to your home and getting your work done that way. Because if companies have decided to ask you to come back to office, it's their decision. They run the show here, not us. They are the ones to make the decisions, not us. So if they feel like it's the best interest for the company to ask workers to stop working from home and come to office, it's their call to make, not ours. And the second thing to keep in mind when you watch this video is that I am qualified to talk about this topic. Because from 2017 to 2020, I used to work physically in an office where I was commuting back and forth from my office to my home, and I used to get my work done that way. And from 2020 to 2024, I have been working remotely, and that's how I still work today. So given that I have been on both sides of the spectrum, I feel like I have the qualifications to talk about the argument that has been going on. And I'm going to start the argument by saying that the IT industry has lost its trust in all of its employees. The IT industry has very openly told us that they don't need us anymore, or they will not need us at some point in the future when AI takes over everything. They have very openly told us that there is an employment pool of people who are willing to work for half the salary that you are asking for. They can lowball us and lowball us to the point of oblivion, and they will still find somebody who is willing to pick up peanuts and work for the company. That is a lose-lose situation for you and the rest of the workers who are accepting the lowball offers. Because you not accepting the job means that you are unemployed, you are not able to afford rent or things, whatever, that's obvious. But the rest of the people who are accepting the lowball offers are hurting the industry as well, where they are setting up the standard for the IT industry employers to think that they can just get away with paying less and less money each year, even though inflation is still going up every year. The IT employer who got a worker for 25% of the salary that you are asking for is now going to think that that is the standard rate I should pay for every worker that I hire. They will fall into this mindset of I can just get away with lowballing employees all the time. And that is a lose-lose situation for all of us. So in this situation, when workers push back on the idea of remote work being the norm and we are getting sugar-coated and told that we should come back to the office for culture and everything, that is something that I have an issue with. And as I said, it's the company's best interest to call us back to the office. And they should just lead with that. If they think that it is good for the company, for the workers to be present in the office, just go for it. Don't try to sugarcoat it. It's where I have a problem with. So some of the arguments that I have been hearing about is the culture aspect of it, where they say that people should come back to the office so that a work culture can be created and bonding should be created between team members. And to me, that is ignorant. Sure, when you get a bunch of people in one place, a culture is getting created. We go out for fun Fridays, we go out for Saturday gaming sessions, we go out for drinking at bars or whatever. But this also inhabits toxicity, favoritism, groupism, biases, and in some cases, racism, speaking from personal experience. The culture aspect of asking people to come back to office does sound good on paper, but in practice it isn't. For a very long time, we have been talking about the toxicity at the workplace and how it should be combated, but there are no solutions to it. And because of that, a quote is very relevant even to this day, that people don't quit bad jobs, they quit toxic managers. So pretty much the results have been very out in the real world when it comes to the argument between remote work and office work. And where we get told that when people work remotely, the productivity goes down. And there is no data that suggests that. There have been studies and it has been found that there was little to no effect on productivity when the team members went remote. Then the next argument that I hear about remote work is that micromanagement is a lot tougher when it comes to remote working. Managers can't physically see you, so they can't micromanage you, and that's bad for the company. And I disagree with that opinion as well. Look, a manager that has decided to micromanage you can do it in any shape or form, whether it's physical presence in an office or whether it is virtual presence in a remote work situation. They can just create a Slack group where they will put all of the developers in, and they can just ping the group every hour or every half hour to ask for status updates. They will drag you into meetings, whether it is physical offices or whether it is virtual environments. It is possible in both scenarios. They can scream and shout at you in person, and they can scream and shout at you in a virtual location, in a virtual presence, I mean. Speaking from an employee perspective, where I have been micromanaged both in offices and remote situations, I can say that the micromanagement argument doesn't hold up. when it comes to advantages of remote work or whatever. However, I am in favor of the toxicity mindset. When I am working with team members who are sitting in different states or whatever, the communication is pretty much very basic, where we only talk about the things related to our work, and pastime, just chatting about things doesn't happen, although it can happen in remote situations, but I have not noticed it enough. People only talk about their work related things and they spend time with their families and all. So the situation of toxicity is pretty much controlled in a remote work situation. That I can say for sure. Now there's this whole argument about the corporate assets, the lands, the officers that they hire. And that is something that I sort of agree with. Like that could be a good reason for asking people to come back to office so their assets don't go to waste or their rented offices don't go to waste. But there is one more aspect I would like to speak about here. The companies that have noticed this pushback of remote workers not wanting to go to the office and are willing to quit their jobs because of it are the ones that will win in this situation. If you are a FANG company watching this video, just be assured that you will never face the shortage of workers from your talent pool. It will grow every year. More and more graduates enter the job pool every year, and the pool size is getting bigger and bigger. So FANG companies will never run out of employees to hire from. But when we replace the word employees with top talent, that's when the situation is different. The top talent pool is already small, and when it comes to them choosing between work from office or work from home, they are going to choose work from home more often than not, because they realize what they are worth and they realize that they are more productive at home. Now, at this point, I would like to show you a YouTube video from Clement Mehelesu. I hope I said that name correctly. I apologize if I didn't. He is a 500,000 subscriber YouTube channel, and he created a video titled The End of Remote Work. And I'm going to react to it. I'm going to be upfront with you. I found the video stupid. I found it stupid because if the company, as I said, wants to call back the remote workers to their office, it's their call to do it. It's fine. But the arguments that he used as a tech creator, where he has made videos about how to land a job in 2024 or what are the situations in the job market of 2024 or tips for software developers jobs, you would think that this guy would speak sense, given he has such a huge audience base and he has created videos targeting software developers. But that's not the case when I watched the video. So he discussed the cons of remote work and he presented some points, and that's what I would like to bring your attention to. So let's react to it.
Now, the second con is that there are a few things that I think we can all agree, even those who are pro remote work, there are a few things that are objectively bad about remote work. For example, like it's much harder to onboard a new teammate. You know, it's harder to like establish those initial sort of connections with them. Show them how to like get their devs set up and established and all that. Like that's just harder. Meetings are a little bit harder. Like yes, you can do them on Zoom or Google Meets or whatever, but there's such a thing as Zoom fatigue, and sometimes it's nicer to talk to someone in person.
So the argument that he brings up for the cons of remote work is that it's difficult to onboard a new team member and get their dev set up. And that's easy in a office environment. How? Does it not take time? Does it not take effort? Does it not take time for a member to put away some time to help the new member get their dev set up and everything? How is that different in any aspect when it comes to remote versus office? It's better to have in-person communication. How? When it comes to onboarding a new member. Onboarding a team member is something that I have done both physically and virtually, and I have found no difference at all. You just get somebody on call or get somebody in person. You tell them what we do here. You tell them that this is the code base you need to clone. You walk them through it. You get everything set up in their computer and you just assign them a task. And pretty much onboarding a new member, first task is to go through the code base and understand what the developers are trying to do there and present their thoughts on the code base that they have read so far. So how is it difficult to onboard any new team member? No explanation over how is it easier in physical locations. Let's just go with the assumption that it is difficult onboarding a new team member in a virtual scenario. Fine, let's continue.
And then the third con, which is perhaps a little bit more subjective, is that kind of like there is some sort of, magic or positive about in-person interactions. Companies like Amazon, they said it in their message, like, in order to foster the culture that we want to foster and enable the creativity that we're known for, blah blah blah. We believe that being in person, conversations, it's always hard to define, but we all kind of know that there's a little bit of truth to it. There's something about like being in person that's maybe a little bit better. Okay, even if you disagree, you kind of know what I'm talking about. And at the end of the day, that is a con in the eyes of the companies.
Okay, so there is something magical about in-person communication. And I do see what you're talking about here, Clement. But are we going to ignore the toxicity, the groupism, favoritism? Are we going to ignore the distractions in the office, where it is beer Fridays or Saturday game nights or whatever, things like that? Are we going to ignore the birthdays at work as well, where we will be expected to close our work laptops by 5 p.m. and go be with the employee for the culture? Are we going to ignore all of that? The cons outweighs the pros when it comes to physical presence among employees. I have always said this and I'll say it again. The workplace environment is a paradoxical place. You are fully aware that there are coworkers who will step on you to get ahead in their career, and yet you are expected to work with them as a team. And this comes from somebody who has experienced both of the scenarios. I do feel like I am a member of the team and I should be collaborative with them while fully knowing that they will step on me to get ahead in the career. They are competing against me for the promotion that they would not want me to have, but they want for themselves. The workplace environment is an environment where you can be labeled anything outside of your control. Some gossip happens behind your back about you, you are not even aware of that. And before you know it, the entire office thinks that you are an introvert, you don't like people, you don't want to face anybody, and that label gets put on you. But are we going to ignore all of that? Are we really going for the magical feeling between in-person communication? It would have been nice that corporate had some solutions to tackle this scenario, but they don't. They don't even care. It's not in their best interest to care what coworkers are doing among each other. But that is the reality that I have faced. You engage too much with your team members and you are labeled a time waster. You don't engage with your team members and you are labeled antisocial or whatever. You go out with your teammates for table tennis sessions in the game room of the company, because every company has to have one, and you get labeled as somebody who likes to, not work around the office. You refuse too many invitations from your team members wanting to go out after office hours because you want to spend time at home with your family, and you get labeled that this guy doesn't want to hang out with us. He is antisocial, so why would we give him the promotion? The paradox of the workplace is something that I feel like is not discussed enough, and I don't see a point of discussing it anyway. Because when you put a bunch of people from different environments, from different backgrounds, from different biases together in workplace, these things are inevitable to happen. These things will happen and it will keep happening forever. Because we are people. We can see the good in people, but more often than not, we are not as nice to other people in the environment when they are physically placed in front of each other. I have tried not to be toxic towards my team members because in a previous scenario, very early on in my career, I yelled at one of my coworkers, and later, some months after that, that same coworker got me out of a tense situation when it came to programming and coding. So that pretty much taught me to never be biased, never be assuming about any coworker or whatever. But I can't say that for all people, can I? I have seen office politics. I have seen office toxicity. I have been collar grabbed. I have been threatened. I have been yelled at in front of all my team members. I have been said curse words to in front of all of my team members, and I went through all of it. But I do agree with the sentiment that it's not in the best interest of companies. So let's continue.
And the fourth big con about remote work, and this one is probably going to ruffle feathers, but let's be honest, is that companies lose almost all control over their employees, and that is not like a good thing for them. Let's be honest. Why? Because remote work can be very, very gamed. Like, it's very easy to game the system. It's very easy to do no work when you're working from home. Again, let's be honest. I know some of you are going to say, no, but you have to trust your employees or you have to empower them and everything. Okay, sure, that works great if everybody is like super duper ethical. And unfortunately, there are some people who are not. And even within those people who are ethical, look, it's just very easy when you're at home to say, you know what, I'm going to clock off at 3 p.m. and I'm going to go to the gym early today. And I'll just text on Slack at 4:30 that I'm still working, you know? Or it's very easy for some people to legitimately do like no work. You know, look at the amount of people on Blind who have said that they were juggling like 5 different remote jobs, getting paid like hundreds of thousands of dollars from each job, despite doing nothing because they were gaming the system. Like, if it's easy to game the system as an in-person employee, which it kind of is, there are a lot of people in these big tech companies that are, vest and rest, just coasting and all that. You can imagine how it is with remote work.
And this is the moment where I got fired up. This is the moment where I decided to make this video. This is one of those moments where I am fully convinced that this guy has never worked a day as a professional software developer. Or if he has, then he is completely into the propaganda of remote work being a bad thing. So fine, let me debunk your argument on this. What is the control that companies lose when it comes to remote situations? They are in the position of hiring you. They are in the position of firing you. They are in the position of holding you accountable for your work that you have been doing all this time. They are in the position to ask you a justification on the work that you have been doing. They can hold you accountable for the time that you have been spending at the company work. So what control is it that they are losing? Now, do you see the bias in this guy? He said that there are people who are juggling multiple jobs and getting paid hundreds and thousands of dollars while essentially doing nothing. And that is such a non-point. Who is out there paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to people for them to do nothing? What kind of job listing is that? Sure, there are people who say that they are juggling multiple jobs and that's a bad thing. How? Company CEOs can invest in multiple companies. Company CEOs can be board members in multiple companies and they can have multiple businesses going at the same time. And that is appreciated, that is celebrated for CEOs. But that's bad for the employees? If the employees are able to get the work done and they are able to deliver results on time for the companies, doesn't matter how many jobs they are doing at the same time, what is the problem in that? Why are we shaming employees for looking out for their best interests, for making as much money as possible? What is so bad about employees gaming the system? If you are somebody who is doing essentially nothing and getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, as this guy said, does the company not have the tools to track your progress? It's very easy to do that. It is very easy to do that because in the smallest of software development teams, there is a team lead, there is a manager, there is a project manager who you are answerable to. You have to justify to them why the task is taking time for you. You have to justify to them what are the blockers that you are facing, how much time each task took. And they can very easily find out that you have been slacking off of work. And they can fire you if they found out about that. Are we completely ignoring the practice that was very acceptable back in the day, that Monday to Friday you work in a company, full-time job, I mean, in person, physical location, on site, and then you work Saturday, Sundays on your startup? Would you label those people as unethical or whatever? Would you label those people as juggling multiple jobs, trying to look out for their best interest? Why is that considered non-ethical? And what if I allege you for the same thing, Clem? You have a YouTube channel with 500,000 subscribers. So you are making money off of your videos. And you may or may not accept sponsorships or brand deals. So you are making money off of that as well. At least you have the potential to. Your channel is obviously monetized, so I know that you are making money off of your YouTube channel. And you have Algo Expert, which you are selling courses off of and you make money off of that. Now, I'm not shaming you for either of those things. You are allowed to look out for your best interest and make as much money as possible. But what if I label you as unethical? It's not the number of jobs that make you unethical, it's how you behave at them. And saying that companies lose all control over their employees is a stupid thing to say. As I said before, if companies want to call us back to the office, it's on them. It's their call. It's their decision. Fine, I'll oblige. I have worked 4 years in a remote setting and I've never felt even once that my clients don't know what I'm doing. I'm still answerable to all of them. I have, in my position, juggled multiple clients at once before, and I never felt like I'm gaming the system or whatever, because I focused on getting the work done, and that's what my clients cared about. I'm sorry I got a little angry over this stupid argument, but it kind of blows my mind how easily some people call employees unethical just because they are trying to make as much money as possible in their careers. So on the flip side of the situation, are there slackers not present in the office? Do we not know a co-worker in our offices that just show up, do nothing and go home? What is so ethical about that? Do we not know co-workers who are working secretly on their startups and don't want their employee to know because the moment the employer finds out, they will be fired? This was a very acceptable situation for employees before the pandemic. There was a very acceptable practice back in the day where we were told to keep applying for jobs even when we have a job, just so we are aware of what our market rate is compared to the market. And if we get a better deal, just move to the better deal. Quit your job and switch for the 30% increment or whatever percent applies. But you would call those people unethical, wouldn't you? There is nothing wrong with looking out for your best interest. You do what puts the food on your table. You do what gets your bills paid. You do what gets your rent paid. There is nothing unethical about you wanting to have multiple sources of income. Doesn't matter if you work at Fang or wherever. This is the point where I was disappointed with this YouTuber, where you would think that a YouTuber with 500,000 plus subscribers would speak sense, but no, they don't. This is all bias. This is all corporate propaganda garbage that he's spilling out. So anyway, I feel like this argument of remote work versus office work is kind of wasting time because ultimately the position of power is in the hands of the companies. They can tell us what to do. If they want to call us back to the office, we have to oblige. Otherwise, we stand the threat of getting fired. The talent pool is never going to run short for FANG companies or the big companies. They will always find people to hire. But the top talent will be smart enough to make their own decisions and knowing what they're worth and what works best for them. And in this whole scenario, the companies who do offer remote positions will win because they are the ones who will end up with top talent and they can even get away with paying a little less compared to the big players. Because when it comes to not commuting, when it comes to living a good life in your own home and deciding your own work hours, I feel like that's what the workers want. Workers are not as much parasites as much as you would want to believe, Clem. We want sustainable income. And when workers feel that they have been compensated enough for their efforts, they do put in more effort, much more than you think. But when you start to take away things from them, whether it is their job security, whether it's their paychecks, whether it's office politics, whether it's remote working situations, that's when the pushback happens. And that is a fundamental right of people to do so. The one thing that you don't realize, Clem, is that when workers face the threat of getting fired if they don't come back to the office, or they get threats that they will not be able to go home if they don't finish a task, when they get threatened that they can get fired if they don't oblige with the company regulations, when they get threatened that remote working will end for them, that's when the pushback happens. And that is a fundamental right for workers to do so. But this video is garbage. You shouldn't listen to these types of opinions. And that's pretty much about it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.